Today I'm going to review the Quatermass Experiment.
This woman is about to learn a terrible secret. She will never be the same again.
The Quatermass Experiment came out in 1955. In the US, it was known as The Creeping Unknown. It's a British science fiction horror film from Exclusive Films. And Exclusive Films would later be called Hammer Films. It's based on the 1953 BBC television serial The Quatermass Experiment by Nigel Kneale. The film was directed by Val Guest, produced by Anthony Hinds. Phil Leakey did the makeup in the film, and music by James Bernard. It runs 82 minutes and is a low-budget film. It only cost £42,000 to make. The film was one of Hammer's first major successes, and they would later do two other Quatermass films, Quatermass 2 in 1957 and Quatermass and the Pit in 1967. The first two films stars Brian Donlevy, and the third film stars Andrew Keir. The film was given a Certificate X in the UK, and Hammer emphasised the X in the title. Brian Donlevy was cast for an American audience with his accent. However, Nigel Kneale, the writer of the story, didn't approve of the casting. Donlevy was an alcoholic and brought a flask of coffee onto the set. However, it was also filled with brandy. The film stars Brian Donlevy, Richard Wordsworth and Jack Warner. And Jack Warner was famous for the character Dixon of Dock Green from 1955 to 1976. So the plot of this one's about a rocket landing back on Earth, and these three astronauts are supposed to be inside it, but only one remains. And Professor Quatermass is finding out what actually happened. And the guy who survives, he starts mutating into this vegetable creature, and eventually he turns into this ginormous monster that Quatermass has to stop. So this actually reminds me of a Doctor Who story, The Seeds of Doom, starring Tom Baker. In that one, this guy turns into a crinoid, this vegetable creature, and he slowly turns into a ginormous monster at the end. And oddly enough, Quatermass inspired season 7 of Doctor Who when they cast John Pertwee as the Doctor. So the Quatermass Experiment, it's a mixture of sci-fi and horror, especially body horror. That's when the body changes. And David Cronenberg does a lot of body horror in his horror films. So this film kind of started it all off. And this is a landmark film, the first success for Hammer Productions, and they were called Exclusive Films at the time. But also, it's one of the first horror films made in England. Like usually up to that point, horror films were mostly American. There was one or two exceptions like Dead of Night. From 1955 onwards, Hammer Films made a lot of British horror films, and other companies were inspired by them, such as Amicus Productions. So this film kicked it all off. Before Hammer Films got famous with the Dracula Frankenstein series in the late 50s, they did make a few sci-fi horror films during the 50s. As well as the Quatermass films, they also made Stolen Face from 1952, Four-Sided Triangle from 1953, X the Unknown in 1956, and The Abominable Snowman in 1957, as well as a few others. The film also got an X certificate at the time in the UK. It's surprising because the film's actually tame. There is one surprising scene though where you see someone's face. It's all disfigured. So the film probably got an X certificate because of the subject, body horror. Eh? It got a bloody X certificate? Well, there's nought in the bugger. There's no tits or anything. Less of the swearing bones. You're always rude. Brian Donlevy's in the first two of the films. Andrew Keir was in the third film. And Donlevy was an alcoholic at the time, having brandy in a flask of coffee going on to the set.
Or Nescafe.
It's second to none.
Nescafe. Coffee at its best.
Ye fucking hell. You can tell he's not wanting a cup of Nescafe here. The drunkard bugger. Ah, nice cup of coffee. Oh, that's strong. Ooh.
Of course, because only Nescafe has that special blend and roast. A richer, smoother taste.
And although he was cast to please an American audience with his accent, he doesn't look right. He doesn't look like a professor. He just looks like an ordinary guy, more like a policeman. So I didn't think he was very good in the part, actually. The director, Val Guest, he also does part 2, Quatermass 2 in 1957. And he has like a documentary type of style to his direction. You could class it as slow-paced at times. Yeah, documentary type of bloody directing. Bloody more like a kind way of saying shit. No bones, he's a good director. One of the things I like most about this film's the cast. Although Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing aren't in, there's a host of familiar British faces that's in cinema. So for instance, you get Thora Hird, who plays a comical character, who's also a drunkard. I think best of all's Jack Warner, the guy who was Dixon and Doc Green. He's got a good screen presence. Whenever you think of policeman, you think of this character, stereotypical Bobby on the beat.
Have your tea at least.
Haven't got time, love.
The things you do to that poor stomach of yours. I ought to get you a picnic basket.
What I'm going on is no picnic.
What about dinner?
Cook it and keep your fingers crossed. Bye, love.
Hey, Phil! That bugger could do with eating a few less bloody meals. Look at the bloody kite on them. Yes, boys, he's a bit on the chubby side. Other people who pop ups, Gordon Jackson played the character of Hudson in Upstairs Downstairs. Richard Wordsworth, he's quite good as well. This is probably his best performance, even though he doesn't have any dialogue. He's mute in this film. He plays the astronaut who survives. His facial expression's really good throughout the film, a look of fear as he's changing into this creature. I thought it was a really good performance. And he's been in other Hammer films like Revenge of Frankenstein, Curse of the Werewolf, but I think this is probably his best performance. And he can be quite sinister at times as well. There's a good scene where he's with this little girl who has a doll in a pram.
Won't you stay and have tea with us? I'd very much like you to stay. You look so tired. There's plenty, if that's what you're worried about. And cakes, too.
The scene actually reminds me a little bit of The Bride of Frankenstein, where Karloff's talking to this girl near a river. It reminds me a lot of that scene from that film. The ending of the film's a bit disappointing though, where you see the creature at the end and you can tell it's just like put together. It was actually made from tripe and rubber. And it doesn't look really good. That was the trouble with the film. It had a low budget. It would have been a brilliant film if it had a high budget. And the end sequences, they just electrocute the creature at the end. So that was kind of disappointing. The TV show that it's based on, that was made in 1953, 2 years before this, it actually had a better ending, where Quatermass talks to the creature and he gets the other two astronauts that were blended together, confuse the creature. That was more of a mental battle. That's a better ending. Very much like what you'd probably see in Star Trek, where Captain Kirk talks to an alien and confuses it. Tries to draw the humanity out of the creature. But with this one, the creature just gets electrocuted and that's the end. So what would I give it out of 10? I thought Brian Donlevy was poor as Quatermass, and the film was slow at times, which was disappointing. And out of the 3 films that Hammer did, the Quatermass films, this was probably, oddly enough, the weakest of the 3. But I still enjoyed it. It's like a landmark film, so I think out of 10, I think I'd give this one a 7. 7 out of 10. What did you think, Bones? Did you like it? Load of old bloody crap. I thought it was slow as hell. Hey, you needn't bloody review part 2 and 3. Otherwise, I'm bloody leaving the channel. Okay, everybody. Bye. Like, subscribe and share. Bye. Bye.
Is there anything I can do?
Yes, Marsh. Gonna need some help.
Help, sir? What are you going to do?
Gonna start again.
This cafe has that special blend and roast. A richer, smoother taste.